All right, welcome to another tier list. Today we're going to be talking about USARF, which is a faction I've always really enjoyed, even when it's in a weird place. And it always feels like it's in a weird place. No video camera today, honestly, just feeling lazy. Let's full screen that. Okay. So, USARF's a really cool faction, and they've done a lot recently to make it more interesting. So let's get started. First, the 6 Airborne Rangers. These guys are solid. I really like the AP Spitfire option. I think it's really expensive, but having an AP Spitfire that can just show up in the midfield in optimal range and just go on a rampage can be really useful. And this army often has points left over, so worth considering. And then the Forward Observer is just really good at doing objectives. It's got D charges. It's a Forward Observer Specialist. It's relatively cheap. I quite like Airborne Rangers, but they're not very impressive. Overall, I guess I should talk about the different tier levels, huh? S tier is for units that any army would like. A tier are faction defining units that most of your list will consider taking at least one of. B tier are solid staple units, units you will often take in a list. C tier units are okay, situational, or counter units, like the Airborne Ranger here. And then D tier, these are probably either suboptimal unit or highly specialized counter units. Usually you're making your list a little bit worse by taking them, but they can be a lot of fun. So yeah, Airborne Rangers are fine, but I do think they're kind of behind the curve, right? They're just a parachutist. They don't have combat jump. They have middling stats, right? They've got no mimetism. They have poor armor, mediocre ballistic skill. They are competent martial artists with AP CCWs, but they have a hard time getting there. I think they're C, maybe even the bottom of C, but they can do good work. 112s, these are very generic doctors. But that said, and they're actually pretty bad overall. But that said, they do have a light shotgun with a boarding pistol. This is a nice combo of kit. But what's actually important here, what's the real key, is that they are wild cards and they count as grunts. And this can be really situationally very important, especially with Rosie here. And I'll probably talk about that later. But the fact that they can wildcard, the fact that they're a doctor, the fact that they actually have pretty good weapons and they're dirt cheap, these guys are good. I think they're a solid B tier unit. Yeah, you're happy to have them in your army. You're going to have them in many of your lists, and they're fine. 112 motorized is similar, but I think you're paying a lot of points, and I don't think this is where you want your mobility. So, while they're cute, they're only okay. And honestly, I'm tempted to put them in D tier. You have a lot better bikers. You have, I think, better specialist bikers. The limited cover is not great. The weapons are not great. I don't think you want to spend 19 points on this. And they can't fire team. Dozers. Dozers are much maligned. The armed turrets are interesting, but overall, I just don't really think you're that interested in it. The thing that makes them maybe not D tier is it's your army's only engineer. So for that reason alone, I'm going to put them in the C tier. They just don't do much, right? They're 13 points for a BS 11 engineer. Whip 13. Like, it's fine, but you're also a faction that really doesn't have many things that want to be engineered. Blackjacks and tractor mules are about the only thing in your army that are going to ever really be engineered. And who cares? Like, honestly. I guess a war driver as well. Is that true? I don't even know. Never comes up. Dozers are fine, but they just don't have a lot of targets in the army, and they don't fire team with anything. I guess they fire team with grunts, but this grunt fire team is probably not what you're going to be that interested in. But it is okay. But yeah, bottom of C tier. Van Zant. Our boy Van Zant has had a glow up, and he needed it. He used to be the only parachutist deployment zone. Last edition, he became the worst of many parachutist deployment zones. And while I'm not sure if that has changed, he is very good now. Attack aware is great. Stealth is great. Berserk +3 with martial arts level 3. APT2 close combat weapon. That's such a huge change. He used to only have an AP close combat weapon. And the big deal here is this makes it anti-material, so he can actually break objectives. This is huge. This BS attack +1 burst T2 boarding shotgun is also really juicy with the chain Colt. I also quite like the AP rifle. I think both of these profiles are solid. I think the fact that he can break objectives is huge. He's a shock immune, dogged parachutist. He can do a lot of damage. The pause there, I'm just thinking, is he A tier or S tier? I think many armies would like to have him. I don't think he's broken, but I think I'm going to put him up in the S tier here purely because not every army has a parachutist deployment zone, and every army would like to have one, and he is absolutely worth taking. So, yeah, very good. Wild Bill. Wild Bill has always been a bit of an odd duck. He has really good short range potential with his multi-pistols. But outside of that, I'm not really sure what he's doing. He's faster than the fire teams he can be in. He isn't particularly durable. And a burst 3, slightly more damage multi-pistol with marksmanship is good, but not great. I think he is a hard piece to build around. And unfortunately, because I love Wild Bill, I think you're making your army worse by taking him. I think you're going to try to force him into a fire team or spend orders solo on him. And I just don't think he's going to make a big enough impact on the game for what you're going to put into him. The Xenotech Hunter, everybody gets these. These seem fine to me. I'm going to put them in C tier. I think this army is actually less interested in Sasha. They have a lot of really good irregular orders in this points bracket. But it's worth mentioning, they're fine. Workhorses are always good. You will often consider them. But they're just here. Again, I think in this army, you're more likely to take one of your other inexpensive warbands. War drivers. War drivers are surprisingly competent hackers. I think people underestimate them. Whip 13 BTS3 is not great, but it's not nothing. Upgrade to have 0 pain is fine. I think what's interesting here is actually the disco baller. That's not something I'd really looked at previous to this video. And having a disco baller is a very useful piece of kit. And often USARF will have fights that it really doesn't want to take, right? So the fact that a war driver could plop out 2 disco ballers on a vital turn. It's worth considering. Also worth considering, tractor mules are incredibly cheap baggage. I think war drivers are actually really interesting. That said, I don't think that they are a staple unit. I'm going to put them at the very top of C tier, and I might reconsider that. I think that disco baller profile is absolutely worth considering. Grunts. I have a long history of enjoying grunts. I think some of the best things about grunts are gone, though. So let me talk about that. The heavy flamethrower grunt with forward deployment, this used to be an infiltration grunt, and it was bad at infiltrating. I think it was -3. But the fact that this still costs half a swick, this really is not impressive. Additionally, the AP sniper rifle, this used to have a higher damage on it, or a lower probability of survival. It's come down in points cost, but a shock AP sniper rifle is fine. And they got rid of the grenade launcher lieutenant, and that's sad because it was a 0 swick grenade launcher. In exchange, they picked up move 4/4. They're shockingly durable line infantry for 10 points. But outside of that, you might still occasionally take a forward deploying heavy flamethrower. It's not terrible. You might have the swick left over. And obviously you've got cheap access to, paramedics and forward observers, although I'd say this paramedic is largely irrelevant because you can just take a 112, who is, basically strictly better. Yeah, I'm not really impressed with grunts right now. You might still take one. I think the lieutenant option is always viable, but I think they're C tier. I think sometimes you're just going to use them to fill out orders, the occasional heavy flamethrower. I think you've got better ARO teams, so the AP sniper rifle doesn't really impress me anymore. It is cheap, but I don't know. I'm not sold. Mavericks, I love Mavericks, and I always misplay them. But MSV1, MIM3, AP Spitfire is just fantastic for 26 points and only 1 swick. It's effectively a discount unknown ranger that is very fast. Yeah, it's very fun to use it. I quite like it. I think it's a solid B tier unit. I think you should consider it. Additionally, I do quite like the forward observer at 17 points. It's also worth mentioning every Ariadne bike comes with smoke grenade launchers. Even though they're not great, BS-12 is not the worst smoke in the game. And having it on a specialist that can go very, very fast, very, very quickly is always useful. So I like these guys. Marauders are great. I love Marauders. They finally gave them courage. I can shut up about them not having courage. What an oversight for all of last edition. Memes out of the way. They have a sniper rifle with +1 burst and multi-spectral visor 1, which is a really fantastic little offensive tool. They also have a heavy rocket launcher +1 burst with MSV1. These are both great options. The AP Spitfire is, of course, fantastic. As is Boarding Shotgun AP Mines at 18 points. And the Paramedic. All of these are very good. They have a handy little fire team where they are kind of pure with Minutemen and Unknown Ranger. So these guys can make very flexible fire teams. They're dogged, they're tough, and they're reasonably effective. I'm a very big fan of Marauders, and they have a lot of really cool profiles. Forward deploying fire teams are great. These ones are good. Yeah, no, I'm just overall a fan. Grunt Intel Rosalind Rosie Monroe. She's always been kind of weird in that she's middling in cost, but she does have some important features that I will talk about now. And that is that she counts as a grunt when she wildcards. So do 112s. That means any Harris or greater can have those two in it and give it the San Diego dice, the SD dice. So you can take a single blackjack, 112, and Rosie, and suddenly that blackjack is spitting out extra dice. I love that. On top of the fact that she's a specialist operative that you're going to be dragging around with reasonably good kit, right? A Thunderbolt +1 burst D-charge boarding pistol is good kit. Light rocket launcher, light shotgun D-charge is great. You also have a chain of command option, which some missions care about more. I can't remember if any of the missions in this ITS pack care, but it can be handy to have a chain of command in this army, especially if you're taking like a Minuteman lieutenant. So I like Rosie. I think she's good. I think she's a solid B tier unit. You'll fit her in sometimes, but not all the time. Unknown Ranger. Unknown Ranger used to be kind of the GOAT. Last edition, easy S tier, one of the best gunfighters in the game, if not the best gunfighter in the game. I would make the argument last edition he was the best gunfighter in the game. He's come down a little. Indiana. Sorry, my dog is chewing herself incessantly. Indy, chill. Okay, I'm not going to shock collar you. I'm not Hassan. Anyways, Unknown Ranger. I still think he's really good. He wild cards. He's got like every special rule you could have. You know, Natural Born Warrior, CC23, NWI, Specialist Operative, Stealth, Tac Aware, MIM 3, Martial Arts Level 1. Martial Arts Level 1 is not the most impressive anymore. But it's fine. Like, it's always been fine. Dodge +1, Courage. Like, he's just overall really solid. I think you're always going to take one of the MSV options. Unless you know your matchup is like Albedo the game, there's not a whole lot of reason not to. I think this AP Spitfire is still extremely good. I think a lot of armies would still be very interested in this model. This may not be correct, but I'm still going to put him in S tier for USARF. I think he's extremely good, extremely flexible. The fact that he's a wild card is fantastic. Armor 4 is great. I still think he's very good. Okay, Minutemen. Minutemen got the glow up that they have long needed. Minutemen are much maligned. They used to basically have nothing interesting about them. Now they're 6'2", which is awesome. They get +1 SD on all their BS attacks, which is amazing. They have combat instinct, terrain total. They get med kitted better. Yeah, CC attack -6. When they're CC 20 with AP close combat weapons, that's not the worst. It's not the best thing in the universe, but they can certainly bully some things if they need to. They're BS 13, Arm 3. They are only 1 wound, but that +1 SD is huge. The missile launcher in a Pier 2-man fire team is going to be throwing 3 dice, even in an arrow. That is awesome. Yes, you can stack vision mods against them and all that good stuff, but 3 dice is still 3 dice. The Forward Observer, a T2 rifle that's throwing 5 dice if it's in a fire team is great. And it has NCO baked into it. Minuteman AP Heavy Machine Gun NCO is great. 34 points is a little heavy on that, but the NCO AP Heavy Machine Gun, this thing can crack tags if they're left exposed. Lieutenant +1 command token is always interesting. And you can even take a Forward Observer with that. So Forward Observer, AP Heavy Machine Gun. The standouts here for me, this missile and the NCO Heavy Machine Gun. These guys are great. I'm going to put them at the top of A tier. The missile launcher actually might be pushing into S tier. I think it's a little expensive for that, but I think a lot of armies would be interested in that profile, especially with reasonable fire team access. Yeah, I'm really hype on this change to Minutemen. I love that they're 6'2". They can keep up with Unknown Ranger. They can sort of catch up with Marauders if they forward deploy. It's just all good. Blackjacks. Blackjacks also got a glow up. They got BS attack -3. And let's see. Anything else change? Yes, the T2 sniper rifle profile got BS attack AP. So it's an AP T2 sniper rifle or submachine gun or chest mines or heavy pistol. That's awesome, right? AP T2 sniper rifle is very spooky, especially in ARO. But the AP heavy machine gun is where I'm at. You get some Panzerfausts, you get AP heavy machine gun, and this with Rosie and a 112 FTO gets the SD dice. That's really cool. Or you could just duo blackjacks. I mean, nothing's stopping you. I think that's awesome. I think blackjacks are cool. 35 points is not bad for Arm 5. 2-ish wounds, right? 2 wounds. They get a little shittier after the first one, but they don't really get much crappier, right? They lose a Fizz. They lose a CC. Who even cares about that? The biggest loss here is they lose 1 point of armor and 3 points of BTS. Whatever. I am quite a fan. I think you should consider them. The BS attack -3 is huge here. So they're kind of your brute force fight through an enemy ARO. I'm thinking A tier, bottom of A tier. But I think you're going to consider these 3 options whenever you're playing this army. Tractor mules. I mean, baggage is always good. Nothing wrong with baggage. 5-point regular order is always good. I think you should always consider them. The guided is weird and okay, like the Katusha. I much prefer, if you're going to take one of these, to take the total reaction one. The Uragan multiple rocket launcher. Just because I think the total reaction is going to often be more useful. It is a 3 dice attack. It has okay range bands. I mean, if you're in 24, it's doing okay. And 3 templates coming out on some missions against opponents who are trying to maneuver fire teams can be very problematic at 14 points and a SWIC, and this army will often have SWIC laying around. So you should consider them. These are incredibly solid, top of B tier, definitely. Foxtrots, I really quite like Foxtrots. They're very basic, they're very simple. It's a little 20-ish point infiltrator, often a specialist with mimetism and camo. But there's some standout profiles. The mine layer is always good. Shock mines and boarding shotguns in the midfield are good. Forward observer, 18-point specialist to actually complete the mission is good. The lieutenant has come down to 1 SWIC instead of 2. I often think you might want this lieutenant. It's not expensive, and a camo token lieutenant is significantly safer. So I think these are very good. I think you're going to take them most of the time. I think a lot of armies in the game would be really interested in a inexpensive camo forward deploying or infiltrating guy. Their stats are just though. They are not good gunfighters. They're only BS 11. They can fight in a pinch, right? Like, surprise attack, good range. They're okay. But overall, incredibly standard unit. You're going to be taking them a lot of the time. A lot of the time they make your army better. I like the lieutenant. Consider the lieutenant. Hard cases. So hard cases picked up 1 SD on their tack bow, which is good. They're infiltrating camo guys with mimetism. They're weird. I have a hard time with them. I think in an army, if you can take more than 15 orders, right, like in N3, these have a bigger place. In this case, they kind of put down 2 camo tokens in the midfield, but neither of them are all that scary. If you're going to take one, I would take the Tac-Bow shotgun boarding pistol. The nice thing about picking up the SD on the bow is that it works in ARO. The Tac-Bow is not a very impressive weapon. It's really only good with an 8. But yeah, they're okay. I think often you shouldn't take them. I don't think they make your army worse. I have just yet to really see them do anything that matters. And I could be wrong. It could just be my incredibly bad use of them. Beast Hunters. So this army gets Beast Hunters. I think you should take a Beast Hunter before you take a hard case. Because I think they just have more utility. I like heavy flamethrowers. I like the AP mines. What else do these guys have? Super jump is fun. They're fine. They're much better in close combat, which can be pretty relevant with their DA close combat weapons. They're okay. They're not my favorite irregular order, though. So I'm just going to put them bottom of B tier. I think you should consider them, but not always. Desperados. Desperados are unbelievably good still. Their CC stats are good enough to bully things. Their ballistic skill is good enough when you're throwing assault pistols with extra dice at things. They are fast. They have smoke grenades and smoke grenade launchers, chain rifles. If they can zoom up their AVA 6, if they can zoom up the board, they can do a lot of damage. I've been almost single-handedly demolished by assault pistol just rolling better. Sometimes that just happens. And at 7 points, it can be just worth the risk. I think 1 or 2 of these are going to go into most of your army lists, and they're very good. Okay, last up, Devil Dogs. So Devil Dogs got a couple changes here, and it's pretty cool. So we have the Chain Rifle Devil Dog, who's just kind of tough. He's got a little canine antipode friend. The antipode is great. It's got sensor. It's fast. It can detonate mines for you. Don't underestimate the utility of a body to sacrifice. And of course, if they both get into combat with something, CC 23 with 2 dice is pretty good. I think the heavy shotgun profile is incredibly interesting. 28 points, heavy shotgun with a boarding pistol. So you're forking everything. Heavy shotguns hit really hard. And BS-11 is good enough. They also have smoke grenades. And then you can also fire team them now. So there's a fire team option that has regular grenades, actually extra damage grenades, heavy shotgun, and smoke grenades, and you can take 2 of them to get the SD dice. Now that's pretty expensive, and I don't know if I'd recommend it, but it sounds like so much fun. I think these guys are very good, very solid. I think you should put them in A tier. I think there are a reason to play this army. And, they're not like the last edition's Bear, but they're fast, they're very dangerous, they're still quite tough. They picked up BTS 3, by the way. That's a nice little buff from last edition. So if they can make it into an enemy, they start heavy shotgunning things, boarding pistoling weak things, getting into combat with things that really don't want to be in combat. Super jump is fine. Yeah, I really like them. So here's my list for USARF. Let me know what you think. Feel free to make your own list if you want. Tell me what I got wrong and leave a comment below. Thanks for listening.